And we are live with the 44th installment of Nansen Office Hours. Thank you very much for joining us today. GM, and welcome. You can hit the like button to say GM back if you want, by the way. I'm Alex, the co-founder and CEO at Nansen. Some people refer to me as the token god. If you are new to our office hours, every Wednesday we host a live discussion about what's hottest in crypto, DeFi, and NFTs. We leak some alpha, and we check out Nansen's new features, as well as answering questions from you. And today we have a very special guest, Justin Bram. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Good morning or good night to everyone. Yeah, really excited to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Alex and I have been, chatting for a little while, trying to do one of these. We've been trying to schedule one for a little while now. If you're familiar with my channel, I've been featuring Nansen as much as possible, just going through different on-chain data for tokens for new projects. So we have a lot to cover today. We've scheduled a lot, and we've discussed a lot of new NFT projects and ERC20s we want to cover. So
yeah, I think we're gonna be able to cover a lot of ground, but still keeping it casual. We're also filling it in for Daniel, right, who's been with us for office hours for a while now, almost 1 year. We were counting with the 44th installment here. But yeah, you're so on the one hand you have big shoes to fill. On the other, I think
very
you're
big shoes.
To fill them. So yeah, it's
awesome.
great.
And of course, if anyone has any specific projects they want to cover, or something they see while we're sharing our screen and whatnot, please do so in the comments. We're happy to just kind of free flow through different things.
Absolutely. Cool. What do you think? Should we just dive right into Nansen? I'm kind of thinking it would be great if you want to control the screen. People can see how other people use Nansen instead of just myself and Daniel. It was quite successful when we had Daryl Lau here. And so, do you want to just share your screen on how you use Nansen?
Yeah, that sounds great. So I think once you enable that, you should see I'm on the Nansen dashboard here. Just let me know when that's live.
Boom. It looks like it's live now.
Cool. So I know we had a lot of comments and there's a lot of hype on this MekaVerse project. And just you can see we're on the main dashboard for Nansen here, and it pops up right away. Obviously, we're all familiar with Axie Infinity, so no surprise there's a ton of volume there, over 5,000 ETH. But you can see here there's the MekaVerse project with 1750, which is pretty crazy. So typically if I see an outlier like that, I'll just click in on it and then we can explore the NFT directly. So yeah, interesting that 6 days ago it deployed. So it's not the newest project, but it's seeing a lot of hype now. And you can see here, just right off the bat, one of the first things I look for, you can see, of course, there's a ton of volume when the project launches. And then the price has consistently gone up, and then it's leveled out. It looks like the average price, as you can see here on the left, is between 6 and 7 ETH. So yeah, after seeing that, I'll see.
Also,
sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I wanted to interject there. It's also kind of interesting to see how tight the range is on like the min and max, and that's because there hasn't been a reveal yet, right? Which means effectively like all the different tokens are pretty much priced in the same range.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one thing on that I've noticed is like this is all kind of priced in. So before the reveal, the average price is going to be, let's just say in this case, it's about 7 or 6.6. And then you'll see like the floor maybe would come in at 5. So that there is kind of, you pay a premium buying before the reveal, just because you're basically gambling and hoping that you get a rare piece. So I think, maybe when the reveal happens, the average price could drop down a bit. But right now, you, of course, get the excitement of being part of the reveal. Yeah, just scroll down and see 309 unique buyers today. And the most important thing I look out for, actually, is this individual transactions section here. So I dropped the extreme outliers just because not as interested in that. And then I'm most interested in the notable buyers. And what's interesting here for this project is you can see notable buyers have been buying pretty much throughout the project's existence for about a week. And they've all been buying at about the same price. Again, that's because it's pre-mint. So for me, like, I'm not an expert on art. I know what looks good to me, but I don't expect that to translate to a broader market. So I'm just always trying to follow these notable buyers on it personally. That's my main strategy. So we can explore that a bit more. So if we go to holders here, or hodlers, excuse me, we can see that there are a ton of unique addresses here. So the project is very well distributed. Looks like there's about 5,500 unique addresses holding this project. And what's really interesting here is you can see that 62% of addresses are holding only one NFT. Personally, I think this is a good thing for a couple reasons. One, it generally means the community is going to be on the larger side, so there's going to be a lot of people talking about this on Twitter. There's a higher likelihood that a notable person holds this NFT. But in addition to that, what happens with a ton of projects is a bot will basically come in during the minting process, and a whale or even someone with just a significant holdings of ETH will just buy up a ton of the supply as much as they can get in the first few blocks that minting opens up. So when I see something like this, I'm a bit happier buying the project just because I know that there's going to be less people that can dump on me, right? Like if one person sells their single NFT they have in their collection, it might not move the market, but if someone like MAV Collector purchases like 50 of these and then dumps them all at once because they've already made a huge profit, well, that could really impact the floor price.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just to shoot in there, I think for something like Bored Apes, it has like 74%, and
Yeah.
like Pudgy Penguins is like 72%. So those are kind of like, if you can get to those levels, you're doing really well. But this is also quite high for MekaVerse so early on.
Yeah, a couple more interesting things here. So you can see that the majority of people have actually been holding this project pretty much since mint. So this is the amount of people that have been holding for less than 7 days. Obviously, that's going to be everyone just because the project's only a week old. But you can see the people holding it for less than a day is smaller. So people are holding on to these things, which is interesting, at least for the time being. And then if we look at notable owners here, maybe, Alex, you could just clarify what a smart money holder is and what a legendary holder is.
Yeah, so smart money, by the way, you can go to docs.nansen.ai to read more about these labels. But smart money holders is effectively this segment that we curate of addresses where both from a behavioral perspective, we classify addresses that are as smart money if they've, for example, been very profitable flipping NFTs, or if they have, provided liquidity and made lots of money doing that, or if there are entities that we know. For example, Three Arrows Capital would be considered smart money, or Alameda. So this is kind of like a grouping of lots of different types of addresses. The legendary holders has to do with how many transactions that they've made. And so you become a legendary NFT holder if you trade make a certain amount of transactions. So typically, this would be the ones who are very active, like buying, selling, and trading, and with NFTs. I don't have the number in front of me, but I can check it afterwards on exactly what the cutoff is. But that's the main difference between those two. And then billionaire holders, would be addresses that have at least $1 billion worth of crypto in their addresses.
Interesting. And then on that note, is there any way, or is there something you have planned perhaps to kind of segment out smart money that actually holds and smart money that tends to dump? I don't know if there's a way to segment that out, but whenever I see this, it's always like a double-edged sword. Of course, we all like to see the smart money coming in, but at the same time, they probably bought in at a lower price than you because they're smart money and we're just average plebs. So, I mean, what are your thoughts there? Is there a way to segment out these smart money holders to see who's going to probably dump it after the reveal or whenever they can, and who's willing to hold it for the long haul?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. This quarter, we're going to put more force behind the smart money curation and labeling. We haven't really discussed distinguishing between those two things, but that's something that we might want to consider, because you're right. Like the behavior you have if you're kind of like a smart money long-term hodler is very different than one who's like constantly flipping NFTs. So yeah, that's a good point. Something we might want to consider.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The diamond hands for projects that have been around for a while, this is obviously going to be helpful in explaining, the smart money aspect and who's holding and who's in it for the long haul. But for a project that's just a week old, you might not be able to gather too much here. Although I will say these people probably mint this person here, whoever that is that has 56, probably minted these at a very low cost and is now at a huge profit. And so we'll see.
Yeah, we've got a few questions here, but I think we can follow up on them after we've covered this section, since they're about unrelated things. But yeah,
Cool.
breakdown is probably a good one to look at as well, right?
Yeah. Also, if it's helpful, actually, before this, if anyone is curious what the art looks like, because I hadn't heard of this project, I did just want to show their website here, and we're not shilling this. I don't hold any of these, although maybe I should go and buy them since they seem popular. But just to see what the art looks like here, it looks pretty cool. But again, I'm not the best judge on the art side of things.
We got,
So
by
yeah,
the way, we got a question here, like on the side, just that I can address. So considering one can have multiple wallets holding NFTs from a single collection, how does Nansen plan to identify true distribution? So presumably the idea here is that if you're an individual, NFT investor and you spread out your holdings across 10 different wallets, it might not reflect true distribution if you just look at addresses. This is a non-trivial problem to solve. And so sometimes we can link entities, but very often it's very hard to say if two wallets belong to the same entity. So the short answer is we don't really have a great plan for this because it's a very hard problem to solve. It's different if you know which entity an address actually belongs to, because then you can merge it on the entity level. But true distribution is actually a very non-trivial problem to solve, and I don't have a good solution for it right now.
I will say, though, in the wallet profiler section here, if there's an address you're interested in, you can always put that address in and see who the notable counterparties are for that address. So a lot of people, in my experience, like we see this happen all the time with what happened with Ribbon, and there's tons of other incidents here where people aren't actually that secure about making sure their addresses have never communicated with each other. Like sometimes maybe I just need a little bit of ETH for one last transaction, so I'll send it from my main address to a secondary one I have, even though those two shouldn't be linked. But it's kind of a little oversight, and I think that's probably more common than not. So that's another thing you can do, is always look at token overlap for wallets.
Definitely, that's a great point. And we will be shipping custom labels, which will allow you to, for example, if you that two wallets belong to the same entity, you can label them, and then you will get custom labels yourself. Of course, that's not going to be reflected in like the distribution stats, at least not right away. But that's something we can think about.
Gotcha. Cool. So as if we're done with that and questions and whatnot, as far as the breakdown tab goes, you can see here we're under the balances and changes section. So here we can see what are the most significant changes in balance, whether it's to the positive or negative. And so you can see here this person here, this uncommon NFT collector, who we could click into if folks wanted to, but they've sold 23 of theirs and they hold one left, sort of a moon bag there.
Yeah,
and
that's funny.
Their first in is 6 days ago, so I think that would mean they probably were minters. And honestly, like I wouldn't take this as a sign of that this is bearish for the project. I don't know what the mint price is, but it was probably something like 0.05 ETH, 0.1 ETH, something very low. So this person has already had like a 60x or so. I hope I'm doing the math right, but they're up so much. These are selling for 6 ETH now that it's almost like the rational thing to do to sell these before the reveal, because a lot of projects do see a lot of hype up until the reveal, and then once that happens, they somewhat trickle down.
Maybe we can click into that. I think it's kind of interesting. I'm curious if they also did, made profits on other collections, or if this was kind of the first one. Yeah, it looks like this is the first one, right? So, 6.47. That's the one that they still hold. So that's the portfolio profile. And then below, it's going to calculate, I think, it's spinning there, I think. Let's see. Okay. Actually, it looks like they just sent them to another address, right?
Because really?
Yeah. Curious. That's why you don't see the profits above. So they bought them and then they started distributing them to some other addresses. I tend to just hover over like that, like in the lower left. If you go back, in the lower left, you see the address. It's a little bit hard to read for those.
Oh yeah.
But like,
so you can see if it's the same address.
Yeah, that's kind of how I do it, at least. And so it looks like they're seeing most to the same address, right? And then there's another NFT collector, which maybe is like a second one.
So that's interesting. They're probably, honestly, this is who we can never know for sure, but the only reasonable reason to do this is to kind of make it look like one party is not holding a huge balance, right? I mean, we can see that clearly, but for the average person that's on just looking on OpenSea or Etherscan and looking at token distribution here, perhaps this is sufficiently hides it for most people, just because, what percent of people are actually digging through this? Probably very small, which is
Yeah,
it's interesting though. That's for sure.
absolutely.
See,
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's one where you might want to make a note and say, hey, these are possibly the same entity, like if you have some custom labels. So
yeah. So it looks like this address deployed contracts at some point in the future, in the past. So
that's curious. Yeah, it's a deployer. Who knows? Maybe it's maybe it's like related to the project or something. But yeah, don't want to
insiders.
speculate too much. I guess people can look into this themselves and see if they can draw any conclusions from it. So they actually, I'm curious, what was the address they sent it to? The top one that they sent,
Let's just see here.
because maybe we can figure out to see if that's now one of the top holders.
What's the best way to go about this? Would it be
Oh
back to
yeah,
the
right.
MekaVerse here?
Probably back to the NFT section on that one. So if you go to the wallet profiler again, and then
Oh,
the
perfect.
one,
Gotcha.
yeah, exactly. Then when you scroll down, I'd probably just click through on the top one there.
Okay.
And so this is 0xCAE, right? And it holds 11 MekaVerse. So I probably just try to spot that in the top holders list of MekaVerse. Like there's going to be one row that has 11. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like what, how big is that? If you actually, you were good on the breakdown. Yeah. And then you just scroll down a little bit and you will find the top holders. And we should see someone on the second page then, I guess, who has 11. So it's one of these guys. There we go. Yeah. And so you can see them 21 hours ago, they started receiving these, somehow related to this one that was distributing the tokens. So like, yeah, people can go down this rabbit hole, I guess, if they want to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and you could also set a smart alert, or a smart address for this, or smart alert for this address, because like there's two ways to look at it. One, maybe this person is putting these NFTs into cold storage, like they want to hold them forever, and this is their cold storage address. But on the other hand, maybe they're trying to make it look like this collection is more distributed than it is. We just don't know yet. But if we want to track this address, we could with smart alerts.
Yeah, should we just show people how to do that? Maybe you want to make a note of that address, and we can kind of do it on the fly.
Yeah, so I'll just,
I don't know if you've used smart alerts. I'm happy to like show you how to do it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll copy the address here just so I have it. And then I'll go to smart alerts and you can walk me through. I have one alert set for Gary V. It's not been useful at all, so I'm just going to delete it. That's funny.
Okay. So you create this one. Let's say you just want to say, I want to monitor this address, whatever it does, right? So I don't know, we should call it, maybe we call it MekaVerse holder or something, right?
MekaVerse holder.
And then maybe you want to have, basically all sorts of transactions. Maybe you can just take all of them because we want to know anything they do. And you just paste in the address there. And that's pretty much it. Like from here, you just have to paste in a Telegram ID, which I think you can get. There's instructions there, which you can, people can do that at home. So that takes you to like a Notion page, and effectively
it's super easy too.
Yeah. It should, like, we want to make this, it's a bit annoying that you have to like paste in the Telegram ID for every alert. It should just be saved right on your profile. But at any rate, I can also say, if you click the show more link there, I don't know if you can see it, it's right below the address. No, not that one, sorry. Below the address.
Yes.
There we go. You can also put more filters here. So you can say, I only care about certain tokens, or I want to exclude like USDC transfers or whatever it is, right? And so the only thing is, these are all ERC20 tokens that we filter on, but hopefully soon we can add more NFT support for these.
Could I manually paste an ERC721 address under tokens, or does it only support ERC20?
That's actually a good question, and I'm not 100% sure.
Should we try it?
We could try it. Let's do it. So you would be able to, you can't really, the product team, if you're watching this, maybe this would be a nice thing. to be able to copy. But
Well,
yeah,
we can
there's
grab it
always
from
workarounds.
Etherscan.
There's always a
So
workaround.
let's see. It pasted in there. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, as far as
the only thing I can imagine is that we might filter out stuff that's not actually ERC20 transfers, like if they're ERC721. But
yeah,
I mean, yeah, that's something we can check separately to be sure how it works.
and then as far as min USD value, are you just taking basically the price that's displayed from Etherscan? So if it was like an ETH, let's just say someone was selling, I don't know, the ribbon token, for example, are you just taking what price Etherscan lists, or do you have an oracle for that? I wouldn't assume so.
So we don't use Etherscan's data, but we have our own pricing feeds that we calculate. So if you're sending like, I don't know, 1 Ether, we would just look at what's the price of 1 Ether and then match that against the filter to get the USD value.
Cool.
That's right. And you can, these entities are pretty cool, like labels and entities as well. Like labels as like a subset of all the labels that we have, but entities is like you can put in Alameda or whatever. In fact, there's a question here in the chat. Yeah. So I don't know if people know this, but like it is pretty cool. So if you wanted to do like Alameda, I don't know, $20 million transactions, right? And then maybe you want to eliminate like stable coins or something, you could filter exclude those, right?
Oh, interesting. So say I don't care about USDC, they're not going to move markets there. I don't care even about let's just say DAI, whatever it is.
Exactly, DAI is exactly. So you can list several of these, and so that just the key with smart alerts is obviously you want high signal and low noise, right? So you have to experiment a bit with this, and often if you find that it triggers too much, you can go back here and like tweak the parameters a bit. And what I would say is you can't expect to find one smart alert setting that will just be the holy grail. You have to like set up one, and then it's useful for a while. For example, while you're invested in like SPELL or whatever token, and then if you sell your SPELL tokens, you might want to just turn off that alert and then set up a new one. Or similarly with NFTs, right? Here, if you're no longer invested in MekaVerse or you don't care about it anymore, you could then just delete this one or deactivate it. So it's actually good to maybe once a week kind of refresh these and tweak the parameters and so on.
Yeah. One thing we were talking about, Alex and I and someone else from the Nansen team, is once you set your smart alert, you can actually share a link that, as long as you have a Nansen subscription, you can click that link and then add the smart alert that someone else created to your account, and it will send to your Telegram, of course. So find friends that are great at setting alerts. We've also talked about like if in the Nansen Discord, you could share smart alerts there. And then in my Discord community, if people have certain requests, we could share and make ones there and collaborate on different strategies. So
yeah, and literally the way to do it is just you copy the URL that you can see here on the screen at the top there. So this has been pre-filled out with all these different settings. So you just have to share that with someone else. When they plug it into their browser, it will have all this stuff pre-filled. So it's pretty nice. It's a good way to share.
Yeah,
that's a great one. So there's a few more questions here, and we haven't forgotten about the spell questions, but we'll cover those later. So is it possible to set up alerts? Not right now, but we're working on it. So hopefully that's going to come soon. Yeah, so is it possible to set up mint alerts using Mint Master Dashboard, like an alert for above some degree of FOMO? Maybe we should show people afterwards what the Mint Master Dashboard is.
Yeah, I'm actually moving to it right now, so people can see that. Oh, looks like people are FOMOing into something right now.
Oh man, what is this? Should we have a look? The
evolving forest.
I mean, it's a pretty good idea to time your mint for the office hour slot, right? That's like pretty good if you're thinking about this.
Just so people can see the art, I'm just going to click the OpenSea link to see if there's been a reveal yet, just so we know what we're looking at here. It looks like it's not a JPEG, it's a GIF. It looks a seed that turns into a forest. It looks like. That's fun.
Makes me want to mint, but yeah. This is what we're missing. Literally, we're live streaming to people that we are missing out live on this mint. Well, that's how it is. I guess other people can mint at home if they want to.
Yes, if someone wants to mint one on my behalf, I will reimburse you for the mint price. Just send me a DM. That's interesting. So let's see here. Ton of transactions. Oh yeah, so it did launch the other day, but there hasn't it's so weird how these things work. Like it'll launch, and
Yeah.
then there's only 300 buyers, 200 buyers, and then for some reason, probably someone tweeted this out. You can see there's a ton of unique buyers just now. So there must be some notable hype, and you can see there are quite a bit of notable
Um,
buyers there, which is
there's a lot of
cool.
notable buyers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, this
yeah,
like I would definitely look closer at this. Like, obviously none of the stuff that we talk about is financial advice. Do your own research. Um, I would probably look at this one more closely and perhaps ape a bit myself.
yeah. But see, this is scary. This always scares me when seeing someone has 200 of these. Like at some point, they probably have to sell. I mean, we could look at their address and see if they hold for life. But my guess is they're probably more of a flipper, just because they're minting at this price, speculating that as soon as that mints over, they can dump it for a 2x, 3x. So these things concern me. You can see there's a large concentration of people holding 20 plus NFTs in this collection. So
Yeah.
that is interesting. And then if we can look here and see how many unique addresses there are in the percent holding one. So yeah, this is a good comparison to MekaVerse. MekaVerse I think was 65. It looks like this is 37%. That's
Yeah.
kind of typical like as something's getting minted. A lot of the smart money you could see it was mostly smart money buying this. They're going to buy it, and then once the mint's over, they can start selling it at like almost an instant 2x, and it's just pure profit almost.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. Someone's saying that 0x Sissy, I guess that's Sisyphus, perhaps, has tweeted. So maybe that's why it's getting a bit of
Oh,
traction right
interesting.
now.
Interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
which of these is theirs.
Yeah. So do you want to go back to like the Mint Master? We got kind of like
Yes.
carried away right away with this one, which is
That's
kind
what
of what.
happens though. That's the fun of it.
That's right.
So yeah, this
Um,
is a fairly new feature, but it's quickly become one of my favorites. I think if you guys are familiar with my channel, you all saw I did a video on how I basically use Nansen to find new notable NFT projects. But I made that video before Mint Master existed, and Mint Master basically does all of the work that I was trying to show you all how to do, which is nice. Um,
we should do
yeah,
another video.
do you want to just give it? I should do another video. I also want to do one for ERC20 specifically,
Yeah.
since I think that's a bit more nuanced and maybe a little more challenging to find actionable insights there. But do you want to give
Yeah.
an overview of Mint Master?
Yeah, actually, if you hover over that little info icon in latest mints, so it explains a bit the FOMO column here. So it's effectively the number of minters in the last 15 minutes. So if you see 5 to 20 minters in the last 15 minutes, these are like unique addresses. It's going to be low. If you see 20 to 75 is medium. If it's 75 to 200 is high. And if it's more than 200 people minting in the last 15 minutes, it gets flagged as extreme, which is what we just saw here. So now we
So
just saw
that's
like, yeah, 200.
that's not 200. Is it 200 NFT mints or 200 unique addresses minting?
It's unique addresses.
Wow. So 200. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
really
why it's
crazy.
extreme, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. That is very
Uh,
cool. And I imagine this is probably a 10,000 collection, so it might have just sold out. If not, you can probably grab the last of them, since you can see about over 9,000 were minted. So this was updated a minute ago, so everyone that's watching might be able to mint, but not financial advice, of course.
yeah. Also, if you scroll down like below this table, there is a pretty helpful overview of minting volume. And so that sometimes you might not catch the mint like real time, but if you're wondering about what are some projects that have been minted very recently, this is a good overview. So you can see based on minting volume, there's like Metasource, which maybe we will look at afterwards. There's Mad Rabbits Riot Club. And so these are like pretty fresh and kind of new NFT collections that's worth to look at. In the chat, there's
Oh, that's cool.
in the chat they're saying that it's sold out. The
Oh
mint.
no.
Yeah. Well, I
I
don't know
want.
if someone was able to like.
Should we see what
sneak
the
that.
floor is real quick?
Also, someone is saying they're going to create a smart alert on your transactions. So watch out.
My transactions?
Yeah. I don't know
Hopefully
if
my
that.
addresses are fully anonymous, but go for it.
Yeah. I guess we can
So it
try.
looks like this is funny. Like I don't know what the mint price was. I guess we could quickly go to their website, but this is just like this is so classic. You can see they probably minted it for 0.05 and now the floor is already 0.137. So getting in on the mint is always always the way to go if you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious
Absolutely.
what the mint price was.
Yeah. There's says evolving forest. You've got your burner wallet, right? So that means if someone
Yes.
was to set up that smart alert, unfortunately,
You don't want to follow me though. I'm just an average guy. I don't think I'm labeled as smart money in Nansen yet. Maybe someday.
maybe some.
It costs
Okay.
0.12 to mint. Okay, so they're selling actually at about mint. Anyway,
Mm, yeah. Thanks, David, also for pointing that out in the chat there.
thanks,
Um,
David.
yeah. So that's kind of like how you can work on NFTs. There's actually more questions about ERC20s and like how to use
Awesome.
God mode and stuff like that. So should we like shift gears a bit and look at that? Maybe I'll just cover one thing first, because someone is asking, is there a dashboard which shows me all the moves the wallets of, for example, Alameda makes condensed in one view? So what I would do here is go to Smart Money, perhaps the Smart Money dashboard, which admittedly does not show only Alameda, but it shows, the, let's say, 2,000 addresses that are considered smart money wallets, and Alameda's addresses would be a part of that. And so you can at least see those, and it's not going to give you all of Alameda's trades yet, but this is a good place to start, at least to get an understanding. And yeah, look at that spell, which is another thing that people have been asking about in the
Yeah.
chat. So maybe we can segue into that. I think if you click this one, by the way, before you click it, can you
Oh,
right click it? And let's see if something fun happens. Did you
oh,
know about
look at
this?
that. I didn't
Yeah,
know about this. Is that new?
it's a new feature, and it's quite nice. Like you can still click through just normally, but many things can now, you can like right click on them and you can sort of select the drill down that makes most sense for you.
Oh,
So
interesting.
here we might want to look at, like, if you wanted to look at Alameda and what they've been doing with Spell, you could look at wallet profile for token. But if you wanted to get like the macro movements, you could look at token God mode, for example. So maybe we should just jump into
Yeah.
that right.
Also, it is weird though. Like Alameda, it seems weird. What are they doing buying just 6 ETH worth of spell? Like this, it's
My,
just such a small amount for them, you know?
yeah. My guess is that this is their market making wallet on Dexus. So you can sort of, they
Uh,
have an automated, like it's programmatically controlled behind the scenes, I would imagine. So it's making small trades, but probably lots of these trades on chain. And maybe they're just kind of delta neutral,
yeah.
selling, they're buying tokens on Uniswap and selling them on FTX, right? So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily accumulating it in net terms. It could just be market making activity.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this, Alex. Just the first thing I noticed here. So for those that don't know, Spell was just listed on FTX, and there's some controversy there because I guess FTX is known for shorting or trying to dump whatever they they list. Now we can look at the sushi swap balance, and we see like a steady decline there, and then obviously FTX is in green there that spikes. Do you imagine? Is it possible there that they were buying up, a bunch of Spell from sushi to list on FTX and not doing it OTC?
So at least we could try to test that hypothesis. We won't get a definitive no, but we could get a definitive yes if we just do the wallet profile of a token on that address we just looked at.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a rabbit hole we could potentially go down if you want to just hop back to the smart money tab that we looked at before, and I'll show you. So if you right click on spell, you can look at token. You can either look at wallet profile of a token or token movements, one of these two. Let's try to
Okay.
click on movements, and this should show you. Oh no, actually, never mind. This is more like if you want to do a historical overview of a specific window. Let's look at wallet profile of a token. This is going to show effectively, when they started getting this token, and well, it looks like they started buying 7th of October, right? Which is like, what is that, a week ago? And
Yeah.
so if you think about that timeline, if you go back now to the token God mode view that we just looked at, I mean, when did it start dropping? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
could be,
It's somewhere in
could
the
be.
middle there.
It doesn't explain the whole thing, but like that wallet was definitely scooping up some spell before it was listed. It could just be because they wanted to be prepared to list it, right? And have liquidity for it. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything nefarious or like bad.
Yeah.
But you can see this stuff on chain. Like this is an Alameda controlled wallet. It started buying its first spell tokens about a week ago, and it got listed like a few days ago. So like, make of that what you will.
Yeah, it's always interesting. It's like you see a lot of this stuff, and hindsight's always 2020. Because I think if you were to have bought Spell October 7th, it's gone up a pretty crazy amount, and I think has gone down a bit since then. But it's always, I want to help work on building a better process for myself when I see things like this to actually act on them. Because I think you can really if you start tracking this and taking notes of like, okay, Alameda bought on this day, and then you don't have to buy it, but then following what happens a week later, and then you'll start to see patterns, and that's what I'm trying to incorporate with myself more.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think in this case, what you could, I mean, in hindsight, right, what you could have done is like, well, there's rumors it's going to get listed on FTX or like 2 weeks ago, whatever. Well, you could just set up a smart alert for this Alameda wallet and say, as soon as there's a spell transaction, I want to be notified. And that's super
Yeah.
easy. But you would have to do that maybe with a handful of tokens that are not listed on FTX yet, but might become, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as they make like a spell transaction or any other token, you'd get notification. It might indicate they're getting ready to start market making it, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably the takeaway from me, how I would, like this observation, that's what I would do there. Like I would find some tokens that aren't on FTX yet, but are quite new. Maybe just have like a list of these tokens in a smart alert and like keep adding them and removing them as they list. And then I get notification every time before.
Interesting. Okay.
That would be one way to do it. We got
Yeah.
some new comments here as well. So it would be amazing to have a dashboard for each VC, which summarizes all their wallets.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
fun idea.
that is a fun idea. We can show you something that's kind of related to this. If you go to more up to the right, and then you go, I think it should be discovery, and then you go entity billboard. I don't know if you've seen this. It's kind of like a,
It's new.
yeah.
Is this for everybody, or is this just the VIP tier, or
Should
does
be
everyone have access?
should be everybody. Sometimes we release
Okay.
stuff to VIP first to get some feedback from them, and because they are sort of like the privileged users who are VIP customers. But I think this one is rolled out to everyone.
So I see.
Yeah,
I was going to say I see ribbon here at the top for the folks that don't know. I had a little bit of a horrible experience there. I was so fortunate to have the ribbon airdrop. I was a very early user in ribbon. Had a large amount of the tokens airdropped to me. As soon as the token went live, transfers went live for the token, it was trading at about $2, and I was so excited. This was like a huge amount that I sold it all back to ETH because like we all just want to stack ETH at the end of the day. And then it turns out if I'd held it just another 2 hours, I would have had like a 3x from there. So it's still very painful to see this. But congrats to everyone there that had the airdrop.
yeah. Only in crypto, right? You just get tens of thousands of dollars for free, and yet we
Yeah,
complain because we could have gotten
Yeah,
more.
well, I tell my friends this that aren't in crypto because I don't, have many people in crypto in real life that are friends of mine, and they're like, Justin, just be so excited! It was a $38,000 airdrop. Like that is life changing for most people. But then it's like, no, if I just held it 2 hours, it'd be worth 90,000.
Yeah, it's so hard to know, right?
You can
But
never
yeah,
know. Yeah.
it's a pretty crazy industry in that sense. Yeah, so that's ribbon. Like this, it's been on people's minds and lips this last week with the incidents of some some Sybil farming. Can we call it that? Or people
Yeah.
basically creating multiple different addresses trying to farm, and it turned out one of their VCs was doing this, which is not. And they also dumped the tokens, which was obviously not a great thing. But then they returned all the profits to the DAO itself, the Ribbon DAO.
Yeah.
So there was, in the end, it was actually the result of, I think it's pretty cool, like community policing, if we can call it that. Like if they hadn't gotten caught, I don't think the DAO would have received that ETH, right? So it was really
Yeah.
a huge service that some of these community members did to track this down and discover it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The person that found it, the tweet thread, they were sharing Etherscan pictures, but it's so nice that this is public for anyone to see. But of course, you could also track that on Nansen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say stuff like this from everything I've seen is super common. These things, at the end of the day, like these teams, they're just normal people like us. They tell their friends about things, and it word gets out. And I think it is pretty common, these type of private farming airdrop events. So.
Yeah, agree. I mean, and you can look at it two ways. Like on the one hand, it feels like it's bad behavior, but the fact that it got spotted
Yeah.
so quickly, I think, is very positive, and it shows the power of transparency with blockchains, which means
Yeah.
that maybe you don't need to have that like heavy-handed regulators if you can have a lot of transparency instead, right? That seems to me like it's a really positive thing as an outcome.
Yeah.
Someone is commenting that I sold apes. That is true, and I will never forgive myself. Just like you
Oh.
sold airdrop. I had 40
Well,
apes.
at least you had one. I never had one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, you can't complain, right? It was amazing, but could have been
Yeah.
even more amazing. I think my apes
Yes.
would have been worth more than $10 million at this point. Actually,
Oh,
kind of sad.
wow.
But okay, so let's see. Should we go back to the spell one? I kind of sidetracked us a little bit here. I think we
The
were looking at
token
token.
God mode for spell?
Yeah. And then you can plug that in, and you were showing off like the sushi swap liquidity and the FTX jumping up there. I also like to go very quickly to the notable wallets section at the top. So if you go to that one, this is very similar to like the breakdown tab in NFT God mode. So you can see a bit, where's this money flowing? And the top balance change here is the S spell token, which I think is the staked spell.
Yep.
So that's something that you could look into as well. You might want to plug the S spell token into token God mode to understand what's going on. But there's probably a good reason why people are putting tokens into there. So perhaps there's a good APY or some kind of incentives for people to do that. There's also quite a bit going into Arbitrum, which you can see here. So
Yep.
maybe there's some kind of liquidity incentives scheme on Arbitrum. So that's another thing that I would right away want to look into.
And just a quick question on this, if you can share. I'm curious how hard. Obviously, you just have support Phantom now as of a couple of days ago, and you're adding new chains. But how hard is it to add these layer twos like Arbitrum and Optimism, since they're so similar to Ethereum rather?
Some of them are quite straightforward because they're obviously EVM based, and they also have a lot of the same interfaces, like a JSON RPC endpoint where we can, like the equivalent of like a Geth node, where we can just pull out the data and it has the exact same format. So we can reuse a lot of our ETL, extract, transform, load jobs for like our data pipelines. We don't have to like reinvent the wheel for every chain. That's the benefit of some of these L2s, and we can like ship support much faster. The thing is though, we do labeling, right? And like labeling, you need some degree of manual tracking and like
Right.
and the cool thing is we also, like 99.9% of our labels are actually automated. So the cool thing is we can like roll out similar heuristics across these different chains because they also have the same like data formats and things like that. So rolling out like tagging of quick swap pools on Polygon was very easy because we can reuse the Uniswap heuristic to tag up, right? Because like it's basically a fork. So like to answer your question, it's not too hard with some of these L2s that have the exact same interface on the data side. And also we can reuse a lot of the tech on heuristics and labeling. But at the end of the day, we also have analysts that are like monitoring the flows and like tagging up manually and so on. So that's one of the reasons why we have to continuously like grow the team. I don't think you're going to have like, thousands of different chains though. Like at some point you're going to have a bit of a, maybe not winner takes all dynamic, but you're going to have a handful of chains that have their own use at the end of the day. And so at that point, we will probably focus in on those chains that have won in the end.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of us are excited for Arbitrum support, so Can't wait for that one.
That's it's on the way.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out that some people might not be familiar with this name here, Sablier. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this is generally for vesting. So basically, you can use Sablier. It's an app. You can deposit like a huge balance. Let's just say of the spell tokens there, and that smart contract will distribute on a block by block basis to specified addresses. And it's all automated, so these could vest over 2 years, 1 year, a month, etc. But you can set all of those parameters. So this is just probably a vesting contract for team members, developers. I don't think Abracadabra has any VCs, but who knows? Maybe they do. So they could be using this contract as well for that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I remember spotting, I think it was Defiance Capital that did a OTC deal with a smaller token, and I discovered it because of that contract specifically.
Yeah. So it's interesting here. You can see there's 12 billion in Sablier, and there's 31 or so billion in SPELL, so spell staking. So that can give you kind of a framework of how much, let's just say, call these insiders, whoever they are, how much they're holding, which I'd have to look at the total supply. I think it's like 100 billion or something for this token, but either way, that's about 12% of the total supply. And if we wanted to, we could click into that and see what the distribution is like. If Sablier is distributing on a block by block basis, how much it's doing per day, etc., and when people are claiming, because you actually have to claim with your address from Sablier, and then you can sell off the tokens, hold them, whatever you want to do.
Exactly. Actually, if you scroll down to, I think maybe 2 tables below, so not the top transaction, but this one, you should see the percent there. So
perfect.
Yeah, so you can see there's actually 2 different Sablier contracts. So maybe they did these vesting at 2 different points in time. It says like 40 days ago over to the right, and then
I think I know the reason for this. A few months ago, Sablier had to update their process because there was a very minor exploit that was possible, and so it's not critical, but I think they updated their contracts, and maybe they switched part of their. It's tough to say, but maybe they switched which one they're using.
Makes a lot of sense. So here you can see a few things right away, like because we were talking about how we can sort of maybe ERC20s are not as straightforward as NFTs, because there's a lot of different things that you can use ERC20s for, and it's not as easy to have a playbook for ERC20s. You have to maybe apply a bit more kind of like logic and think about what might be happening here. But I like to look at, so like you mentioned, the ownership percentage. That's obviously very interesting, but also the change columns, right? So you can see there's actually money flowing out of both of those Sablier contracts, which means that people are claiming the vesting. Like that's probably what's happening. So one thing I would do here is I would probably like right click on one of those Sablier ones, like, and then you can go to top recipients. So like who is receiving?
Interesting.
So like who's actually claiming from this vesting contract? And look at that, 3 smart money addresses on top of the list, which is like pretty cool. And so that gives you an idea of like who is actually receiving these tokens,
and then we can see if they're dumping them, holding them, putting them into staking them on SPELL.
Yes. So that's right. This is like the wallet profiler, and you could do actually. If you go back to you can right click this one, I think. And then you go wallet profile token. There we go. Yeah. And so now you can see what they're doing with the spell token specifically, right? So.
Interesting. So you can see. It looks like that they're pretty much selling when they unlock, which is I have nothing against when insiders do this. Like, if this is life-changing money for folks, like you kind of have to sell. You're at a huge, your cost basis is 0. You just kind of have to take profits, especially if you have a lot vesting. So I never look at this as a malicious thing, but it is helpful to see that insider, like this person specifically, their balance, they'll have a spike in balance, and then whether they sell or transfer to another wallet, you can see it's going down.
Yeah, I think if you scroll down a bit more, we can actually see like what they're doing. Oh, they're sending. It's funny. They're actually sending some tokens to one of these other ones, that whale wallet. 1 billion tokens were sent to that whale wallet. So there could be some kind of like they probably somehow know each other, right? And this, I kind of like this table. It's by default sorted by size of the transaction, because like the most interesting transactions are often the biggest ones. So you want to see those first. But you can
Yeah.
also sort this and look at the time, right? What are the latest things they've been doing? And you can also click through on the very right to look at the transaction itself. If you want to see it on Etherscan, sometimes like a SushiSwap or Uniswap transaction, you can understand like, so this is just a transfer, right?
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at one of those ones, we want to see, are they actually selling or just providing liquidity? And
They're
looks
minting a NFT, or the Uniswap V3 liquidity
so
NFT.
they're adding liquidity, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's
it's
bullish.
yeah, yeah. So it looks like they are. I mean, at least for this, you could click through all the transactions if you wanted, and we probably want to do the same thing as in NFT God mode or NFT wallet profiler, where you see like add liquidity or sell right in the table, so you don't have to click through on each of these
Yeah.
transactions. Right?
I do want to point out one interesting thing here. I shouldn't have jumped the gun and said this is bullish. It's very interesting. We'd have to look at this Uni V3 liquidity position, but Uni V3 has something called a range order. They don't really market it much, but it's essentially a way to like exit a position without causing a huge amount of slippage. So if you
Mm,
set your range appropriately for your concentrated liquidity, this could in fact actually be like a very genius way to convert your spell to ETH over time as the price fluctuates. And it's also a way to like to diversify out of just holding one token and you're matching it with ETH. So you're dampening your volatility there. So it's better than just straight selling, but it might not actually be bullish. You'd have to actually do some more digging there.
yeah, that's a excellent point. We have a bunch of comments here now, and I've kind of lost track, to be perfectly honest.
But
Go
one
ahead.
one quick question before we'll get into those, but it looks like they're sending tokens to the zero address. Now I know the team Abracadabra
This,
burnt a large portion of tokens, so maybe this person is the one
mm,
responsible for doing that.
I think they're receiving from the zero address. So the green
Oh, you're right. Yep, you're right.
coming
That's
in.
my mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's a good that you pointed out, though. So it looks like they actually minted. Maybe they're
Right.
actually creator of Spell or something. Like they minted this token. I mean, it's like
Yeah, from the
14.7.
deployer.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the deployer. Makes sense. So and they're also the ones that have received the most from that Sablier. So it's maybe just the team, or like founder vesting or something,
Hmm.
providing liquidity. So do you want to go back to like the token God mode, like the high level sort of view
Yep.
for Spell? And if people wanted to do this for like S spell or stake spell, you could also click through on that and basically just paste in the, I don't know if it's in here. Let's see.
Let's see.
It might
Probably
not.
not. No.
But you could actually, so in the meantime, you could just go on like Etherscan. Like the workaround here is to go on
Yeah.
Etherscan and write S spell, probably find it there, and just paste the token address in here, because you can also do that. So okay, there's a question here about token God mode. If I look at spell, and sorry for taking so long to answer this. If I look at spell, do I also see stats about S spell, or are they separate dashboards? So hopefully what we said just answered it. They are separate dashboards. And so because there are two different ERC20s. So if you want to understand what's going on, it's good to look at both of these. And
Yeah, and we're on S spell now. We're token God mode for S spell.
yeah, and it looks like pretty much all of the liquidity for S spell is on SushiSwap. So maybe there's like an Onsen or something, like a liquidity incentives from SushiSwap to attract the liquidity. I'm not sure. That's something people could probably find out by going to sushi.com.
It's like bento box.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it. Like probably that indicates that there's some kind of liquidity incentives from the Onsen program. So that was the answer on that. You would use both. Someone also asked, what are your thoughts on using Nansen solely to copy trade? I think it's, I wouldn't recommend sort of blindly copy trading, but certainly crypto is the kind of market where influencers rule to a large extent. And also, there's a huge degree of information asymmetry. So if you can identify wallets that tend to be early movers, that is often something that you want to know about. So I think it's definitely it's a great platform to discover that this stuff is happening, to curate the list of addresses that you care about, for example, with smart alerts. So I think it is definitely useful for that. But you can use it
Yeah,
also for others as well.
on that note, I was going to say, I think you have to figure out what works for you too, because I think hopefully during this stream we've showed how one action that we see on Nansen that's like an outlier in the data, it can be both bullish and bearish. You have to really dig deeper and kind of make a judgment call on whether it is bullish or bearish, because there's so many ways to take the actions here. And I think it does take a little more investigation than simply copy trading.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. We're actually getting close to the hour already. I feel like time really flew by here. Is there any last thing that you wanted to cover before we wrap up here?
Just looking at some of the questions I had, or some things we had prepared. I think we've covered a lot. Did we want to cover the LobsterDAO NFT real quick, or do we not have time for that?
Yeah, let's look into it. We can definitely spend a few minutes on this.
Yeah, so just as a background, LobsterDAO is like a Telegram-based DAO with some very notable developers in it, like Bantag and others, and it's kind of like a haven for like insiders in DeFi, although it's a totally open Telegram. So I can post a comment below with the link if anyone wants to join the Telegram there. But essentially, anyone that was in their Telegram, depending on how many messages they sent, they were able to mint these NFTs. And their mint was there was just a reveal today, but pre-reveal they were trading it. I think 4 ETH was the floor, so very high. So I was just curious if we could spot any insights there. I'm fortunate enough to have one of these. I don't think I have any plans to sell it, but yeah. So it's interesting here. I want to see as far as the breakdown.
Price has been pumping, but it looks like it was maybe a large transaction that was made on the upper end of the scale there that pulled the average up probably.
Yeah, and I think what happened here was after the mint, we saw which ones were rare, and some of them are going for like 15 ETH, and the floor is probably at like 2 or 3. So that's probably what's causing that there.
Oh wow.
As far as notable buyers, not too many. I wonder if that's we'll have to look into that, but I wonder if a lot of the notable wallets just were able to mint it initially. I will say also people probably used anonymous wallets for this because they allowed you to use any address to claim the NFT. So most of the notable people are probably anonymous here.
Yeah. But what happened there towards the end? It looked like there were some really big ones. Was that the reveal? Where people would those?
Yeah, the reveal just happened a couple hours ago. So I think the highest sale was for 17 ETH, probably for one of the more rare pieces.
Nice.
See if there's anything interesting here.
Post Lobster link, please. Let's see if.
Yeah, I can show you the OpenSea, and so you can just type it in. It's LobsterDAO. So if it's just OpenSea.io/collection/LobsterDAO. They're not verified yet, but they should be because there's over 100 ETH of volume, over 1.2K of volume. And here's what they look like. The running joke is that everyone that holds one is going to make it just because they all look like shit, and so it doesn't matter how rare your piece is because they all kind of look like crap. But yeah.
Oh, okay. He wants the Telegram link. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll post a comment after this. Sorry about that.
We'll share that separately.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to cover there. It looks like pretty high level of unique addresses. The majority are holding just one, which again is something I like to see personally. Cool. Awesome. Are there any last minute questions, or should I stop sharing my screen here?
I think so. There's one also. The owner of the NFT project from LobsterDAO supposedly minted the most rare one. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what happened there, they did do it very transparently with IPFS, and all of the code is on GitHub that's public. I think how it worked is he probably had a huge share of the mint, just because based on how involved you were with the Telegram, basically how many days active you were and how many messages you sent. And the admin, I think his name's Ivan, is literally there 24/7. So he probably just had like 100 or so of these NFTs. I mean, we could actually look at how many he holds, probably. And yeah, so someone has 100. Oh, that's from 4 hours ago. Someone bought 120.
We can maybe leave this as homework for the,
Yes.
viewers,
Yeah.
'cause,
Sorry, I'm getting carried away. It's like it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole,
I know
but
the feeling. I know the feeling. The Nansen rabbit
yeah,
holes, like infinite.
yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on Office Hours, Justin. It was super fun hanging out with you here. So, I'll say that that's a wrap for today, and we hope that you enjoyed this discussion. If you like this, then give this video a thumbs up or share it with your friends. And remember to subscribe to our Nansen channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our alpha leaks. And thank you. And we will see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Take care. Bye-bye.